Give me just a second here.
Okay.
And looks like we're live.
All right.
All right, welcome everybody. First order of business is call to order for the October 14th, 2020 meeting of the Zionsville Board of Parks and Recreation. We'll start off mentioning that President Tim Cassidy will be out of the meeting, as well as he said we haven't heard from Aaron, so we'll start with a roll call. Looks like we have, well, I'll say the names, Member Stair.
Present.
And Member Pack.
Present.
And Member Bivens.
Present.
And Member Salowich.
Present.
And we also have our new superintendent, Jared Logsdon, is present, as well as Mindy Murdoch and Parks Board Attorney Roger Burris. So welcome everybody. Thanks for logging on. John, it looks like you're logged on from out of state, so thank you.
I win the award for traveling the furthest.
That's right. Jared, welcome to your first official meeting. I'll say that quickly, but next we'd like to approve the September 9th, 2020 minutes. Did anybody have any issues that they saw or corrections that needed to be made? Roger?
I have a couple of minor corrections. It talks about the minutes being approved for September 9th. I think that should be August the 12th minutes that were approved.
Oh, you're right. For where it says September 3rd meeting. Okay.
And then under the Park Board Attorney section, where I was talking about occasionally being notified of Plan Commission or Board of Zoning Appeals, it should read where property owners have proposals on property adjoining park property. The typo said property owners with property that would join park property, and that we don't need any other property joining park property, but we're okay with adjoining property owners.
Got it.
And then one other question. When we talked about the golf course carts, my understanding was we would not need to store them in the winter, but it says that we would have to.
Mindy, do you know about? Can you clarify?
Yes, we for the contracts we looked at, we would be storing them.
So I just misunderstood that.
Yes, we would be storing them. We originally looked at ones where they would store, but the storage rates what they were charging us, we could probably, if we really wanted to store them off, we could find better deal than what they were charging us. So we removed that. So.
Okay, that's all I have in terms of questions.
Okay. So if there's nobody else, then I would accept a motion for the approval of the September 9th meeting minutes.
August 12th meeting minutes, right, John? Or
No.
No, September 9th. Right.
But August 12th prior to, yeah.
Yeah. I would make a motion that we approve the minutes from September 9th.
I will second.
All right, thank you, Wayne. All right, all those in favor of approving the August minutes, September minutes? Say it. Oh, we need to do a roll call. All right, Member Pack?
Aye.
Member Stair?
Aye.
Member Salowich?
Aye.
Member Bivens?
Aye.
All right, motion approved for previous meetings. Next, we need to approve the.
Hey, John, excuse me. Can I interrupt you for just one quick second? I just got a text back from Erin, and she is out of town and did not get an invite. So I don't know if Joe can maybe reach out to her and see if you can get her something. Maybe she can join us.
Okay, Joe, did you copy that? Are you able to send an invite to her?
Yes. Who is the person that we're talking about?
Aaron Bidwell?
Okay. We'll get things in the works.
Okay, thank you. Hey, John, if you wouldn't mind texting her back and tell her when she's able to log on, just let us know. If she can't
Will do.
All right, thank you. Next, we need to approve the special meeting minutes. Unless we need to review those, I guess we can just jump to an approval of those special meeting minutes. I don't think there was much to look over. But did anybody see any corrections on that? If I'm hearing no corrections, then I will take a motion.
I will move to approve the special meeting minutes.
Motion made by Member Pack. Second. Yeah, Roger.
Actually, one correction, that those minutes have language that imply that it was an executive session, which it was not. It was a special meeting, but it was not an executive session. So we don't need a provision applicable to an executive session. Other than that, I think they're good.
Okay, thank you. So,
Okay, then I'll second that motion.
okay, motion made from Member Pack, seconded by Member Stair. We'll take a roll call. Member Pack.
Aye.
Member
Aye.
Stair. Thank you. Member Stair.
Aye.
Member Salowich.
Aye.
Member Bivens.
Aye.
And I too say aye. So motion carries for approving the special meeting minutes for September 3rd. Moving on to public presentations and or comments. I didn't actually see, I see we've got 2 non-video participants. I assume Joe's one of those, but I don't know if we have any members of the public that would like to make a presentation. If so, now is the time.
Our only attendee at this point is Bonnie.
Yes.
It looks like Trish is on too, and she's coming later. So moving on from there, Jared, I know you've been in the job 3 days, so feel free to keep your staff report brief if you'd like, or dive into as much detail. Again, welcome. We're excited to have you here, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Really excited to be here. It's been a good 3 days. I'm not going to pretend I have a lot to present right now. Just starting to step into the weeds, but definitely not immersed just yet. So this month's agenda and a lot of the projects that are active is the hard work of Mindy. So I will defer to her for most of the insider information. I'm excited to present more next month.
All right, sounds good. Mindy, do you want to, I know you'd be doing a little bit for Park Naturalists, but as you've kind of rolled over, what, you have anything to report from the superintendent hat you were wearing previously?
Well, some of the things we're gonna be talking about as we get into the business itself. But just, yeah, got hopefully Jared on board with all the projects going on. It didn't scare him away too much. There's a lot doing there. You'll see that there were reports from Dave for maintenance services. So the parks have been active and busy, as well as with the Park Naturalists. But really, unless you guys have any specific questions, we'll just keep on rolling along.
Okay.
I have
Go ahead,
I
Wayne.
have some questions on the reports, if you would,
Sure.
please. They talked about the Boone County Volunteer Organization that is doing some weeding. What volunteer group is that? Do you happen to know right offhand?
Right, that is actually from ARC of Greater Boone County.
Okay.
They reached
Okay.
out to us. They have a couple of groups of kids, you know, that, well, they're 18, 19, 20
Yeah.
year olds, that they've been trying to give them job experiences so they can see kind of day-to-day different ideas. And they've been doing work at Lebanon Parks as well as Uland Country Club. And so they reached out to us this summer and said, hey, you know, we'd love to come down and help out in the parks. So I did get them in touch with Dave, and they came out the one day at Mulberry and did some work pulling some weeds. And then I know since then that they've been in contact with Dave for set up some other times. So we're hoping it's something that continues and it gives them some, you know, get them experience and also, you know, feeling of accomplishment, and it helps the parks as well.
Yeah, I'm aware of that group. I've done fundraisers with them, and that's a good group. A couple more questions. On the rail trail, you talked about a contractor, I guess, contracted to take out invasives. Is that, what invasives are we dealing with? Probably same ones we've been dealing with for years.
Always the same culprits. Yep.
Yeah.
So Ecologic has been out, as you guys, as the park board knows, they've worked with our parks for years now. As far as I've been here, we've contracted with Ecologic for invasive work. And they have been hitting several of the parks this year. And we had quite a bit of money left over in our invasives contract for this year. So I did reach out to them when they were out here, because they're wrapping up most of the projects that they have currently on contract, and asked them to take a look at our rail trail as well as around Carter Station, since I know it's in the park board interest in the master plan to kind of do some updates to Carter Station in the near future here. And so they came back with some quotes for along the rail trail, they will be cutting back any of the woody invasives all the way to the ditch. So if you think of you just walking along the rail trail, there's ditches on both sides. So they're going to clear out any invasives up to the ditch, not beyond. And they're actually working from Oak Street all the way up to Heritage Trail Park. And so
will they be doing will they apply any herbicides to those?
They
cuttings?
will be. So they will be cutting honeysuckle and, some of the larger pears they're going to have to leave just because, we don't really know where we would drop a full-size pear. But they'll be cutting the honeysuckle, the autumn olive. They'll be treating the stumps of those, and they'll be stacking the woody. And then Dave and his crew are going to be taking that material up to the campus area on 875, and then over the winter, as they are looking for stuff to do, they will mulch that up. They will chip that. And then of course, if they find things along the way, so if they come across like multiflora rose or any other invasives, I know we have a little bit of honeysuckle vine and things, they will treat those as well.
Okay, good.
And then they will come back in the spring and they will treat any new growth, as well as the hope is then they'll hit the poison hemlock that Wayne, that you pointed out near Heritage Trail Park. Yeah, they have to wait till it starts back up as a rosette, and they'll hope to hit it in the spring.
Okay, good. Was there, let's see, one other point on that, Phragmites, has the Phragmites situation been pretty well taken care of, or is it still out there?
It's in bits and pieces here and there. But it's definitely not, we don't have massive grouping of it. I did see a little on the rail trail when I was on a dog walk. And so they said if they came across that, they would also treat that. So pretty much, they're charging us for removing the honeysuckle, but if they come across something else, they're not going to, turn a blind eye to it. They're going to hit it with the herbicide while they're out there. So, but it was good when we went out and walked, we found a lot of very unique and awesome natives. So we do have our native bittersweet along the rail trail. We have a lot of gentian along the rail trail. And we even found some native clematis. So there's some good stuff out there. And that's the hope, is if we can move it back and open it up, that'll allow the natives to kind of fill back in. So that's the goal. And then on Carter Station, they're actually going to bring out their machinery, because most of what is around the pond in Carter Station is honeysuckle and autumn olive and pear, and they will actually be grinding that down. So they're going to be clearing that out. So that'll make a huge improvement. I'm sure the people right there, the HOA is going to be very ecstatic that they'll be able to see the pond again.
Good, good. One other, I'm not sure if this is on our agenda any place, but the drainage problem at the nature center, is that moved along any place, or is that still
We will get to that one when we hit budget.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I'm going to hold that one for the last.
Very good. And my last comment on it is I spend quite a bit of time exercising around the Heritage Trail area, and I've noticed the cornhole structures are in. Was pretty impressed with that. Let's see. Oh, the basketball court. I see they painted it, but I noticed it stands out. So they've done a great job up there. So pass that on, please.
Will do.
That's all I have.
All right.
All right. Thanks for your comments, Wayne. Thanks, Mindy, for the update. Was Dave, I meant to ask you, was Dave joining us?
Dave is not. He's actually, even though he, keeps answering his emails, he is on vacation this week.
Okay.
I
Okay.
keep
So
reminding him he's on vacation. He needs to stop answering emails. So
we'll leave the maintenance update just to what was included in the packet. So if anybody has questions, bring those up, please. But we can move on to Mindy's report as naturalist.
sure. So let me pull on down to the next one. So as you guys can see, we have actually been very busy for September. Thanks to the park board for approving our update for virtual programming and our fees. We've hit the ground running super fast. So most of these are all Rachel, but we've had just in September alone 4 virtual programs with Stonegate and Pleasant View Elementary. And then what you don't see is in October, those have continued, and actually some on-site outdoor school programming. So Rachel actually had 6 programs alone last week in school programming or scout programming with either virtual or outside, either at the schoolyard. So it's definitely something people they're excited that that's an option that they can take advantage of. So
can I interrupt real quick? On that note, I know the flyer that you sent last time, was that for public dissemination?
yes, so feel free to share that with if you know of any groups. Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and it's also on our website. So if you can always tell them to go to the Nature Center pages on the website, and they can find it there underneath scouts and school programs.
Okay.
And then we've got Tales on the Trails going. So you can see there's a lot of dog walks through there. We don't have as many registered. I believe the numbers, some around 56 registered this year versus usually we are in the 70s. But the big difference is that most of the people that registered this year are actually walking, where in the past we'd get, like 20 or 30 that registered and they never turned in any walks. So I kind of like the smaller number, but most of them are out there and actually enjoying themselves. And then we're continuing our Facebook Live programming on Fridays. So in September, Rachel focused on the different groups of mammals. And so, yeah, unless anyone has any questions on Park Naturalist, I'm looking forward to getting kind of back in the swing of it all and, start planning for next year, what we can do. So.
Good. Well, thanks again, Mindy, for, the role you took in acting superintendent. That was crucial to the success of the board. So I think I speak for the entire board that we all appreciate you jumping in with both feet and keeping us up and running and getting us through that timeline. So thank you again, and thanks for the report. Anybody have questions for Mindy? If not, then we can move on to our attorney, Roger Burris. You're on mute, Roger.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
As you know, we have a lot of things going on. So some of these I'm just going to go over pretty quickly and then certainly be available to answer questions. Worked on the golf cart lease agreement, which I think is all set more or less. On the Holiday Road vacation, we had a meeting after our last meeting where the mayor's office and the county, some of the county officials participated, and we have a good plan for that situation. I attended the Plan Commission meeting on September 21st, where Mindy well knows we got approval for the Heritage Trail Park Phase 2 and also the Overly Warman Park Phase 1 plans. That went very well. Also on Overly Warman Park, we finally received the deed from the developer for the final donation parcel. So, they had to donate those parcels as they develop each section. Their third section was broken down into 2 sections, which delayed the donation of the final piece, which is by far the largest. It's 42 acres. But that has now been signed over to us. I'm still waiting on confirmation from the title company that everything's good on their end. And I expect to have that any day. And that deed was also holding up our commitment to the Department of Natural Resources because of the $200,000 grant that we received years ago to use for development of Overly Warman Park. The Land and Water Conservation Fund requires that a restriction be placed upon that land so that it will never be used for outdoor recreation. Of course, we have no problem with that sort of restriction, but I would ask if you could pass a motion to authorize the president of the board or the superintendent to sign it's actually an amended declaration of restriction, because I did this like 2 years ago when we got the first piece, and then it's just taken a while. Plus, the DNR wants to have a meets and bounds legal description of the entire parcel, so we were able to get that through the same engineering firm. So anyway, this would be an amended declaration of restriction for a portion of the Overly Warman Park that was submitted for development using Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. Could we go ahead and entertain that motion now, Mr. President?
Yes. So if I can just rephrase, we would like to be willing to accept a motion for an amended declaration of restriction for a portion of the Overly Warman Park that was submitted for what was the grant again?
The Land and Water Conservation Fund grant.
Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. So we will accept that motion at this time.
So moved.
And that motion also authorizes the president of the board or the superintendent to sign, correct?
Motion, yeah, authorizing, amended that to authorize the president or the superintendent. We have a motion from member Bivens. We have a second.
I second it.
Second from member Pack. All right, so we'll do a roll call. Member Pack,
Aye.
member Stair,
Aye.
member Salowich,
Aye.
member Bivens,
Aye.
and I see Aaron is on. Member Bidwell, are you?
Aye.
Okay, and I also say aye, so that unanimously carries.
Thank
Roger.
you. Just a couple more items. I also have a meeting on the South Rail Trail project. I met with the mayor and with the property down there, Mr. Notarani. And that was a very good meeting. I think we'll get things worked out on that. And so I'm continuing to follow up and try to get that one wrapped up. I still have the 2 trailhead properties south of there that I'm working on, and I'll have a report on those next month. And that's it for me.
Okay, any questions for Roger? Thank you, Roger. All right, looks like you're going to be up immediately again as we move on to new business with the line property.
Am I on for this one?
I think you're probably can maybe kick off the discussion.
Okay.
I know Tim shared with me, but yeah, maybe you can kick off where it is now. And it sounds like we
Sure.
need to take some action as a board.
Sure. So, as you know, we've talked about the Hankel Line property a couple times before. And thought we had a way that we could acquire that property before, but that did not quite work out because of an issue with the appraisals, and the complication of acquiring 2 properties and then having to resell one. So, we took a step back and some more thought and planning, and what we came up with is another possible way to do it, where we would not be dependent on additional funds from the town council or redevelopment commission, but would be using Parks Department non-reverting funds, I think in total. And also it's a smaller amount. So with a smaller amount, which was $500,000. And our goal is to acquire basically 5 acres of parkland, and then either there's a house that comes with it, and either resell the house or figure out a way that we can acquire the parkland without the house. So we think that it would be possible to do that using Parks Department funds, not more than $500,000, which we have in our non-reverting fund. So to do that required a reappropriation or an appropriation of funds by the town council. That was requested to the town council to do that. And at their last meeting, they approved that reappropriation. Mindy, did I miss anything?
I think so. So yeah, so we have the approval to use 500,000 of your non-reverting. And so now it falls onto the board on how they want to proceed.
Yeah, so yeah, the town council also appropriated $40,000 from park impact fees for the Heritage Trail Park, which was something that Mindy talked about last month. So with the appropriation of $500,000 from the non-reverting fund, we would be asking you to entertain a motion to authorize the superintendent and me to pursue the acquisition of the Hinkline property at not more than that amount of money.
I guess at this
Can
point,
I say something before we make a motion there?
yeah, please.
There was some talk. I'm sorry, John. There was some talk before. Someone raised the idea of maybe we could use that as a new nature center at the house and keep the house. But having viewed the house and having talked to some folks who have been in the house, it doesn't seem like it would be very practical to do that. Not only because of the house, but because of the fact that there's no parking there, and it wouldn't really be able to accommodate very many people. But I have done some due diligence and talked with a few real estate people who seem to feel that is a very valuable property for a home site, and that we wouldn't have a whole lot of problem if we decided to try to sell the house and a small parcel around the house, and then keep the land down by the creek as parkland. So with that in mind, I would make a motion that we authorize the superintendent and the attorney to go ahead and pursue that, with the idea that we would turn around and sell the house and a parcel with the house. We don't want to be in the real estate business, but I think this is a pretty good, efficient way to get it done.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Obviously, acquiring that amount of land for that price to me isn't good. Is there any other, before we move forward with the motion, any other discussion or questions that anybody has? Hearing none, then we do have a motion from member Stair for Roger and the superintendent to make that acquisition. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second from member Bivens. So we'll take a roll call. Member Pack?
Aye.
Member Stair?
Aye.
Member Salmon?
Aye.
Member Bivens?
Aye.
Member Bidwell?
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so that unanimously carries. Thank you for that, Roger. For the Elm Street Green Story Walk, Mindy, do you want to update us on that?
Yeah, I am trying to get our librarians on. For some reason, they are not getting the link to work for them. So I just emailed it to them. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
But I can definitely talk a little bit about what's going on, and then we'll see if I'll keep a lookout to see if Laura pops in here. So we sent to you is actually a grant application that the Zionsville Library is looking to apply for. So we, as you know, we do a lot of partnerships with our library. And we reached out this summer because both them and us have been very virtual and looking for ways of trying to get, get people into our programs as well as, to our facilities. And so one thing that we discussed was a potential of doing a story walk. And while we love our sanctuary is oftentimes, fortunately, vandalized because it is a little bit out of the way and not very, I guess, in the public eye, some of the other ones. So I reached out to them and suggested Elm Street Green as a potential because of the loop trail that is there. So we are currently have a temporary setup. And so if you've walked Elm Street, you will probably see the story walk. It started September 1st. And then it did extremely well. And so we continued it on through the rest of October. But then we started to talk, is this a potential that we could actually make this a permanent feature to Elm Street Green? So you'll see in their proposal that really their request from the parks itself, it would be to utilize Elm Street Green, or if there was another park that you would prefer to see something. And then using Dave and our crew to actually install so they're looking at an aluminum structure. So to install those posts, let's see. And Laura is here, so let me get her in here. But to install those posts, and of course, we'd set them up in a way so that we could still easily maintain around them. And then it would be the library's responsibility to actually changing out those stories. But Miss Laura, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, I'm glad you made it in. So I just started talking about the story walk and kind of talking about how, we started this in September. We've got our temporaries out just to kind of, check, gauge the water and the interest from the community. But I will let you continue on explaining a little bit more about it and what you've heard back from the library. I've heard a few things, but what you've heard back from people for this program.
Well, I was just there tonight with my husband, and we, rather than taking it all down, because half of it was blown down, we were testing it and moved it to start in the woods. Because the wind was really blowing, and we just did a promotion to have people see the new story walk. So I'll come back tomorrow and see if it survives this blustery evening. And just while I was there was somebody from Indianapolis with their kids walking and looking at the story walk, and they thought it was really, really cool. So we've gotten a lot of nice feedback. It's a beautiful walk through there. So we also have done some programming down there with Mindy and Rachel. And after our programming, people walk the trail, somewhat of a game, or it's associated with our fall reading activity programs, our program called Beanstack. And we've had over 40 people go to the effort to get the points to go put them in our fall activity challenge. So it's kind of a fun, interactive activity with everybody, and it's a great way to get everybody outside. And during this time, it's been a great outreach. So, and it happens in parks all over the country. This is not a new idea. We modeled it after the story walk created in Vermont, actually, my home state. And but I had not been aware of it until we've had a few story walks at the library that have been temporary, and the librarian would walk through the story walk with the families, and that has been popular as well. And so we have probably a dozen or so story walks prepared with temporary, but it would be really nice to be able to extend it to the park in a more permanent way so people can go on their leisure. So does anybody have any questions about the story walk or how we would function?
How often would you change the storyline or the content of it down there?
Well, the goal would be at the very least in the summer, the nicer months, once a month. There are also ways that we can have events and associated with the story walk with, say, like an activity exercise, or, you know, if there was a major event, the story could be changed out to promote other activities besides concurrent with the stories.
Okay.
So to answer your question, in the summer, May, June, July, August, at least once a month. Winter time, we talked about just leaving the poles there, depending on the weather, and how they survive the elements. But I do know that park down there, I haven't been there in the winter. People probably still walk around, but the installment that we want is one where the poles would stay on the ground and the frames could be stored when the weather is too inclement.
You guys can see in your packet, so there was the proposal that the library put together, again, because they're looking to get a grant to cover the costs of these. But the second page of that, the one picture is a picture of the structure they're actually looking to purchase to install. So that shows you the pole with the kind of the angled face frame. And then as you scroll down on that same page, you can see our current setup, which are just, they're temporary. They're, you know, yard stakes with the Velcroed on stories. They do tend to blow over, especially because it's so dry and it's almost impossible to get that stake in the ground. Not without trying, trust me, I've tried, but even, you know, even with having to fix them occasionally, I've seen a lot of people out there using them, so.
Now, if I read that that correctly, it sounds like the grant is contingent upon the parks agreeing to partnership with the library. Is that correct?
Yeah, the goal is that the library would provide the books, the staff to maintain the stories and the structures. They are approximately between $400 and $500. I mean, that is the top of the line. So I'm going as high up as I can. And if we don't need it that high, what the parks would need to be able to furnish is planting the poles, which it is concrete down there. So I'm not underestimating that effort of the parks. So hopefully that would be the biggest contribution partially. And then also I know keeping that relationship where we would do programming together and keep an eye on it and make sure that the stories are relevant to whatever's going on, and coordinate somewhat.
So, Roger, how detailed of would we even need an agreement between the two groups to pursue this type of thing, or is this, you know, it seems like it might go in a little bit more detail than a handshake agreement?
You know, I think keep it as simple as possible, but if you want to document it somehow, we could certainly do that.
And then sounds like we would need a motion, unless there's any other discussion, we would need a motion that the board is proving to pursue this, because there will be some, I mean, do we know the costs associated with this, Mindy, in terms of the down the road maintenance and upkeep of the units? Is that the library's responsibility, or will that be our maintenance department?
I would say maintenance of the pole, like it, you know, if something would bend or tilt, I think that would fall on us as parks as resetting those poles as we need to, or if something would need to be relocated for whatever reason, whether maybe it's an area that just keeps getting vandalized or something of that sort. I think that would fall to the parks. But I think for the actual units themselves, that since the library is pursuing the grant, then the actual unit purchasing would be, so outright, there's no costs on our end. It's more of our staff time to get it good.
You know, if the mowing service might, accidentally back into one and needs to be replaced, is that something
that would actually fall on the mowing service then for replacement? They've had to replace a few trees. So that would fall on them to cover the costs for replacements. Yes, for any damage that they do.
Okay, well, good. Well, we can continue to discuss. And personally, I think it's a great use of our parks in conjunction with the library. I think our goals in the community are very, very similar in promoting activity. So I like it. I don't have any more questions for Laura. Does anybody else have other questions or discussion? Otherwise, we could accept a motion to pursue this. Hearing no discussion.
I'll go ahead and raise a motion to enter into this agreement with the library and to have a story walk at Elm Street Green.
Great.
I like it. I'll second that.
Thank you, Wayne. So we have a motion to pursue this agreement with the library and continue the story walk through 2025 with using Elm Street Green. Second made by Member Bivens. We'll take roll call. Member Pack.
Aye.
Member Stair.
Aye.
Member Salowich.
Aye.
Member Bivens.
Aye.
And Member Bidwell.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so that unanimously carries. Laura, thank you for getting on this call and bringing this to us, and we'll look forward to the partnership.
Great. And we'll keep you updated how the grant goes and when we can start this project. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, Mindy, do you want to update us on the community outreach initiative?
Sure. So you all should know that in our 2021 budget that we have requested additional money for part-time staff as well as for an outreach vehicle, a van, so that we can continue to reach the community out to where they are. So what you have in front of you is just the start, just a logic model of a basic community outreach program. So kind of use the hashtag that goes, or the tagline that goes with the parks that been around for a while, the get up, get out and go play. But you can see, if you look at the park board's purpose and the mission and vision and goals of the parks, having an outreach program fits within a lot of those. I've kind of highlighted those different parts of the mission and the goals. As just, it was one thing I started considering with our kind of with the restrictions that were on our current nature center, as far as not being able to be open whenever we want to, the size of the space itself, free utilization, and then of course, not having a whole lot of staff to actually do that. So this is a potential that if we can get the things approved through the town council, there's an opportunity here to really expand into our programming. So the second page is just kind of like a general for the inputs. Of course, we know we have the staffing and the mobile unit itself. Supplies, many of those we already have here at the Nature Center. Some other ones we do have funding in our recreation line that we can supply a lot of those, but I'm also, if this is approved, we'll start to look at potentials for grants through Duke Energy has given us grants in the past with Nature Play Days, also with the CUNY Foundation, and even because this will have a health component to it, reaching out to some of the local Witham, St. Vincent's, as far as possibly getting some grant money to help cover any future costs that go with that one. And the thought would be that there'd be two components to the outreach. One would be the very nature base, the Discover Your Backyard, which is the tagline for the Nature Center. And really getting a chance to kind of continue that outreach, that kind of, backyard, back, your schoolyard kind of discovery, where we can bring the programs out to a lot of the different parks. So not just here at the nature center, but setting up a program base at like Heritage one day, or going to Starkey and doing something for the community there as well. It's also a potential, again, kind of reaching out to where people are. So there's a potential to be able to reach out to different HOA events or school functions that are going on. So you can see a few there. And then with Zionsville's climate action plan, there's that whole potential of doing sustainable or climate action initiatives that are part of that climate action plan. The second part of that kind of outreach would be our play in the park. And here again, it's kind of depending on what recreational materials we purchase, it does open up that ability, and what staff we hire in, or if we look to go get contractors, it opens up the possibility to do various different things, from giant yard games set up on Elm Street Green for one Saturday, to putting together kickball tournaments. I think about, we always do kickball with the fire department and the kids adore it. So setting up kickball tournaments or a dodgeball tournament at the tennis courts, have an opportunity to possibly do things with seniors, such as senior sneakers or some more inclusive programming. And then also we would have that, I've already purchased a tent for the parks. So we do have a logoed tent for our use. But just the thought of, if we're going to be looking at what different community events, once we're, past COVID, that it really gives the parks kind of a more of an impact and marketing message, that, you're showing up in a vehicle that has been, flagged as the parks. You've got the tent, you've got some staff there to really provide information about everything that we can do. So, but yeah, so just kind of, if the board likes the idea and the thoughts, then my next step will actually be to start fleshing this out into more detail. So this is just kind of testing the waters before I really start delving deeper into it all. Happy to answer any questions.
I just want to commend you, Mindy, on putting this together. And as you know, since you've been going through that process too, on the programming subcommittee that we've been working on with our consultant, I think this is right in line with what we're hearing and what they're going to suggest that we do. So I think it's great. I think we're getting a jump on it, which is terrific. So good job.
Yeah, I agree with John, and I was just thinking from Jared's point of view coming in, this is a great way to kind of let him know and kind of prepare the department for where we are now, where we're trying to go, and how we're going to get there. So.
Oh, I think John locked up.
I agree, John. Nice job.
There we go.
So if there's no, again, thank you, Mindy. If there's no questions on that, we can move on to old business. First on the agenda for old business is a update on Overly Warman Park. Tricia McClellan from REA is here. I see that. And I see her. Hi, Tricia.
Hi. We had the pre-bid meeting today for Overly Warman Park, and I just went through the sign-up sheet. We had 8 general contractors. It was mandatory, so if they're going to bid as a GC, they had to be there. That's a good number. I'm very pleased with having that many there. That's a really good turnout. Questions from contractors are due by Friday, with the bids due October 28th at 1 o'clock. So fingers crossed for the next 2 weeks until we see those come in.
Yeah, of course. At what point, how long will it take you to do what we have? And then will that be at I assume the November meeting, you'll give us an update on that?
It will be. So we'll do a review. It usually just takes a few days, at the most a week.
Okay.
That way we can get that recommendation to you with, any comments, so you can look over it and look at the bids yourselves before that board meeting.
Okay, good. So that'll be enough time. All right, thank you. Yeah. Any questions on the update from Tricia? We don't need to make any action, board action on that tonight. That hopefully we'll look at that next month.
Don, since Trisha's here, do you want her to roll into the bridges themselves as well? It's
Yeah,
not,
that'd be great.
yeah.
Yeah, actually, thank you, Mindy. Yeah.
So that would have been a supplement that you would have received yesterday, I believe, by email.
Yeah, Trisha, you okay moving on to that?
I am, yep. I was switching my screens here. So for the big four, rail trail, the Starkey Avenue bridge replacement. We had previously talked about the report that the engineer had done. Since that time, we went back and got some more precise numbers. It's still not designed, so these are still kind of preliminary numbers, but there's definitely more structure to it for the bridge. So the three options would be a shorter bridge with a clear span of 38 feet, where Starkey Avenue would run underneath the bridge. That would give us enough room for Starkey Avenue plus a trail or a wide sidewalk on the north side only. And that one would have the 15-foot path on top. That came in very close to what the budget was that we had discussed with the report. I think that number in the report was $590,000, and the planning estimates coming in at $605,000. Option 2 is a longer bridge. It would have a clear span of 52 feet underneath. So that would allow us to get Starkey Avenue and a trail on both sides of Starkey Avenue, which would be nice. But the majority of people are going to be connected with the trailhead there on the north side. Again, that gets us a 17-foot height. And both these first two, it's straight bridge abutment walls. And then the third option is actually the one that was considered in the report. And that's because that was what was considered in the two reports before that. And that was a bridge that was 100-foot long, had short abutment walls, and then, a sloping ground that came back to the road to Starkey Avenue itself. So that would leave us with, did I put it in there? I think it's about 34 feet clear for the road itself. So not quite as wide as that 38 feet. We could probably get a sidewalk in there, probably not a path. And that one came in at the highest. The reason they had looked at that is the straight up and down bridge abutment walls, the concrete costs more, but we've got double, we're trying to get the 15 feet on top of the bridge, but we also are trying to, maybe get a path underneath the bridge too. So our focus may be a little bit different than what it originally was with that 100-foot bridge. So that's where the shorter bridge is a cheaper bridge, but more expensive walls. And the reason I mention that is just because if you look at the difference between, even the first bridge option and the third bridge option, it's more than twice as long as far as the bridge goes. But again, the opening, really, you're not getting as big of an opening underneath of the bridge with that third one.
With my limited bridge knowledge, can you, the walls that are currently there, what are those considered in terms of short abutment, full height? What do we have now? I'm trying to picture what the difference would be.
They are full height. Only it's, I'm trying to remember, 13 and a half, 14 and a half. It's quite a bit shorter than what will be in there. But that full height, it means that straight up and down abutment wall.
Do those remain? Do those current abutment walls remain in all of these, or are they taken out?
No, in all of these, it's complete bridge replacement. So that's what allows us to make it wider.
Okay.
In addition to getting that vertical clearance for Starkey Avenue and wider on top for the path. It's not 15 feet wide on top right now.
And I will add for the board, because I'm not sure how much Tim had discussed. So when we had talked about full replacement of the bridge, because it is going over Starkey Avenue, we did bring Lance into the discussion. And he did mention that with the pathways in the future with Starkey Avenue, that he would like us to have the consideration of putting at least enough room to add a trail underneath there, because that is kind of in the future project for Starkey. And that's why we went back and looked at, you know, what would it cost to add for one trail side, or what would it cost if we could make it wide enough to put trails on both north and south. That's why this is in addition to that one.
If I'm reading this correctly, is only option 2 or 3 allows for trails?
Correct. Or only option 1 and 2. Yeah, option 3, and I've calculated that, but I guess I didn't include it in there. Well, yeah, there, I put it in the text actually up above. It's 32 feet clear with option 3.
Okay, so even the 100-foot clear span doesn't actually indicate road clearance.
That's the bridge. Yeah, that's where it gets a little, so that's the clear span of the bridge itself. But yeah, the road clearance underneath, because that one has the slopes that come all the way back, it actually gives you a road clearance that's much more narrow.
With
So
the
we could probably get a sidewalk in there.
with the cost being different than where would the additional funds, assuming Lance isn't going to spring for the additional funds for the pathway clearance, where would we pull that from, Mindy?
This would be coming out of your non-reverting. So, I mean, there's the potential if the Hinkline property worked the way we were thinking, and then we did sell the house, that money would go back into non-reverting. So then you'd be utilizing that, you know, whatever money you got back plus some for this one. I have heard from, not from Lance himself, but I have heard from our wastewater department that they are very thrilled with the idea of replacing the bridge, since they're right there, and actually allowing for a trail. So there's a possibility we could ask for some funding from the wastewater department, because it is improving their area. And they've in the past have helped us with other projects. So that is one that I have talked with Barry, and he was very excited about it, and he told us to keep them informed. There is a potential to reach to them to see what they might be interested in participating in. But most of this, I would say pretty much all of this, is going to be coming from your non-reverting.
So clarification, the only way we can have pathways along Starkey is an option 1 or 2.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
2 or 3.
No, option 1 and 2. Option 1 will give you one pathway to the north. Option 2 would give you pathways on both sides of the road. And option 3, because it's it's sloping down, it'd be a gradual slope, but you're not getting any pathways. You're just getting a very big bridge with no crazy concrete like this.
But this is indicating it's not, we have the option for pathways. The pathways aren't included in these costs.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, this would be something that Lance's department, more than likely, Lance's department would be incorporating with improvements that they do to Starkey Avenue. And that might not happen for, a few years.
Right. So these gives us options in the future versus no options.
Exactly.
Any other discussions or questions for Tricia on this? Is this something we need, look at the dates here. Do we need board action on this tonight, or should we review this?
I think there's time for you to review. We have construction plans, up to a certain percentage done for the trail itself. We'll want to incorporate the bridge design into those plans, and we can't start the bridge design until, obviously you make a selection. However, we don't own the trailhead properties yet. So, in my mind, there's a little bit of time here where you can make that decision, and then we can get the design going. And as soon as the bridge design is done, it will go out to bid very quickly, because we have, the design done, the majority of the rest of the trail.
Okay. I mean, where it's coming from, the fund, I'm not sure how everybody else feels. I might be inclined to be Roger successful with the Hinkline property to see what we're in for that. Prior to making a determination on that, but I'd be open to what everybody else considers.
I have another question on this.
Go ahead, Wayne.
It appears that the major difference between these is the length of the clear span. The clear span is a trail itself and one end of the bridge to the other. What is the advantage of having a longer clear span, say from the 52 to 100 foot? Maybe I'm not
That's what
picturing it.
got us the north path on for heading north. Option one allows a path on one side of the road. Option two allows a path on both sides of the road.
Right.
So we're dealing with future expansion options. It sounds like, Tricia, correct me if I'm wrong there.
True. I think you're asking about that 100-foot long
Yes.
bridge.
Yes.
The reason they considered the 100-foot way back in 2007, not so way back, was they were looking at a 10-foot wide trail, and the cost of the prefab bridge is exponentially more costly when we widen it to 15. So when they had the 10-foot, it actually was cheaper for them to have that 100-foot long bridge with the embankments and the short abutment walls than it was to have a shorter bridge with all that concrete in the abutment walls. So at this point, that third option doesn't make a lot of sense, but back then it did, and that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, it seems more important to have space under the bridge. And that seems to be more important than what's going on the top of the bridge, since it's going to be adequate for our needs, whether it's 52 feet wide or 100 feet wide, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Does that make sense, Tricia? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, if I'm not hearing any more questions, if nobody feels strongly on making a decision on this tonight, it sounds like we do have a little bit of flexibility to evaluate which bridge option, depending on how we're going to be paying for this, depending on what money's available once, some other things happen. So unless anybody else feels strongly, we can continue to review this and discuss it further once we have more information at next month's meeting.
I agree.
Tricia, it looks like that might conclude what was on your agenda for tonight. Anything else you wanted to share?
I think that's it. We're still making progress on Heritage Trail Park Phase 2 on those plans.
Okay.
And should have those wrapped up for Jared to review here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us tonight.
Thanks a lot.
All right, moving on to the Starkey Stairs agreement. I'll look through that. Roger, is that something that you would be able to discuss?
Mindy probably knows more about this than me, but I can say that I've looked at the supplemental agreement, and I think it's fine. I mean, going back to the beginning, we've changed plans a couple times, and that's why second supplement to the agreement with our designers. Along the way, we were able to take out some things so that it's not like we just keep spending money. It's like we cut some losses in order to change the type of structure we were designing. And so we still have money left to do that. So that's the best I can do, but Mindy probably knows more.
Okay, so as long as you read that through that agreement, thank you for doing that. Mindy, you want to share your thoughts?
Right, yeah. So from what I read through this one, so this agreement would, if you decided to follow through and have authorized the agreement to be signed, would be that the engineers that gave us the alternates for the bridge would then bid this out, that the contractor themselves would then be responsible for actually making the changes necessary for that wood structure for SB3, then would be also then be doing the construction of that. So I'm not sure. I was, don't know everything with the SB1 stairs, if this was a similar agreement as far as having having the contractor actually build out the structure and then make the materials. But that's kind of what this is that you kind of almost like a design build sort of work. I just wanted to make sure, I was like, as long as it looked correct in the legal standpoint of it, and the board felt that this was the right way to go to get the SB3 stairs moving along and hopefully built and installed, probably not this year, but hopefully next year, get those replaced.
All right, thanks, Mindy. So I know everybody, we've discussed this project at length. Looks like this is the obvious, not conclusion of that discussion, but the result of those discussions. So does anybody, if nobody has any further questions, I would accept or further questions or discussion, accept a motion to approve the amendment to be signed and enacted by the superintendent. Don't all jump at once.
I would move to approve the supplemental agreement number 2 for the SP3 stairs as submitted and allow the superintendent or attorney to sign it.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Member Pack. We have the motion, so we'll take a roll. All those in favor of the motion, Member Pack?
Aye.
Member Stair?
Aye.
Member Bivens?
Aye.
Member Savage?
Aye.
And Member Bidwell?
Aye.
And I also say aye, so motion passes to pursue the supplemental agreement for the SB3 stairs. Thank you for putting that together, Mindy. John Salowich, I could hardly see you there as it's getting dark out. I almost called past you. All right, thank you for that. Moving on to the dog park rules and fees. We discussed that last month. I think Mindy's got some more information for us this month. So Mindy.
Yeah. So back for some more. So kind of fleshing it out. I did have a discussion with our planning department since they will be doing the permitting. They just received approval for a new permitting software system. So the hope would be that this, whatever, it's pretty much however you would like to structure it, they should be able to offer the correct permits as well as the key fobs and going forward. So, however, the big one is that we need to have our fee ordinances put together by the end of October. So if we want to charge certain amounts for next year, and we don't want to try to amend the fee ordinances from the finance department, kind of need to make a decision on the costs. So I started to flesh this one out. You can see there, I broke this out, that this would be a similar packet that they would get when they would be coming in for permitting. So Roger, if you have any questions or there's anything you think that we should change wording wise, most of this was word for word off of some of the other parks that do have dog permits. So I did check with Indy Parks. I checked with the Indiana State Parks, and a lot of this is word for word what they actually utilize within their permitting. So you can see there that we're looking for an annual fee per dog with a limit of 3 dogs per household, which is pretty universal throughout the dog park world. And you can continue on there. The biggest one would be the actual costs. So you can see as you go down to the end of the fee and registration, the 2021 dog park fees. In my research for the dog parks, kind of the range in central Indiana was between $40 to $120 per dog per year. On the high end of that one, I would say Carmel was the highest, that it was $120 per dog. Most of the ones in our area were roughly between 75 to that 120. A few locations, Indy Parks is one of them. They offer a discount for second and third dog discounts. like I said, again, no dog parks offer more than 3 dogs per family for that setup. Brownsburg actually does a discount for resident versus non-resident, which, talking with Pros Consulting, that is one that they highly recommended we look at. So again, kind of giving favorite to our, our constituents, those that are paying the taxes for Zionsville, giving them a discount versus we know we're going to get people from outside of Zionsville that will want to utilize our dog park. So kind of factoring that one in. So kind of my recommendation, and again, the board, you can up this, lower this, however you feel, but I looked at having Zionsville resident having a $75 a year fee for the first dog, and then offering a discount of $50 for the second dog, $50 for a third dog. Whereas a non-resident would pay $100 per dog, no discount. The replacement key fobs there and dog tags, those are kind of what I saw with most others. I will say our key fobs are going to be about $7 to just purchase, straight out purchase. So you know, if someone loses their key fob, you're covering the cost plus a little bit. Dog tags are again about $2-3 to replace a dog tag. So again, you're covering your fees on that one. The one unique thing that I did find in a couple dog parks, and I thought it might be a good one here in Zionsville, since we do have a lot of people that have out-of-state family and they come for extended visits, but this is one again that the board can decide, not right now, let's look at it maybe in the future, was actually a guest dog option where they would have to fill out the permit. So we're making sure that they have all the correct vaccinations and they would actually be utilizing the key fob of whoever they're staying with. So again, if they're not following the rules, it's the key fob owner that's going to pay the consequences for it. But then you would have to fill out the period of stay that you would be requesting for that dog. And so a guest dog pass would be $5 per day. They'd have to pay in advance. They'd have to pay in full. And if they only use, let's say they paid for 3 days and they only use 2, they don't get that third day refunded back to them. It's kind of, you paid for it, that's all you get. But again, that's something that the board can decide on. So we do need to kind of set an idea of what you're thinking as far as fees go. And then, like I said, if you look through the rest of that document, it goes into the health requirements, which is again, kind of across the board, and then gets into the actual rules of the dog park. The only thing I know last month when we talked, there were a few areas that were highlighted that was mainly dealing with, do we allow dogs that are not spayed or neutered, or do we require that they have to be spayed and neutered? I put in that they we're allowing dogs that are not spayed and neutered, just because we do know that we have a lot of breeders that live in Zionsville. But of course, they would not be able to be in heat when they go to the dog park. And then the other one was children. So it kind of batted that one around. I thought about my own daughter. Do I want her running around a dog park? Probably not. She's a little crazy on that end. So you can see in there for children, I put no children under the age of 6 allowed in the dog park, and then children under 18 must be accompanied by an adult permit holder. So those are what, but again, if the board feels strongly that you want to change those, make it higher, lower, that is for your decision.
Hey, Mindy, I had a couple questions after reading through the document. On the Carmel parks being $100, is that for a single park, or do they have multiple dog parks that people are able to use?
I don't know if they have multiples. This was for their one. I think they only have the one.
Okay.
So I think this is for their one dog park there. Central Park, I think is the name of their park. So yeah.
Okay. My second question was, are we going to cap the number of memberships that we sell?
That is entirely up to the Parks Board. I saw it both ways. I saw some that did not have a cap, and I know Carmel caps theirs at 600 dogs. And then after that, they have a wait list. So it's entirely up to the board themselves if you wanted to set a cap. I did put within the rules that the Parks Department does have that authorization that at any time we can decide that, you know, hey, we have enough dogs, we don't need any more. So kind of leaving that open for in the future, if we decide, yeah, there's just too many, we need to stop it. But I did not set something straight out, but that's definitely something that you can decide if you want to say, hey, we're going to start this first year with only 300 permits and go from there.
Okay.
It's
I
up
mean, I
to you.
would be in favor of a cap simply for, you know, safety and logistics, but also I think in past experience, things tend to sell better if there's a definite cutoff limit. We might create more interest from that. Okay, final question. Do we have any sort of software or site that's going to maintain this for us, or is this going to fall to park staff to maintain, you know, the vaccines and the membership and lost dog tags, et cetera, et cetera?
So the permitting is going to be going through our planning department. So they will be doing all of the, you know, when people fill out a permit, they bring it in, they will be, you know, issuing the key fobs and the key tags. You can see in that information, it has a place where they can write the fob down and the tag. So we would have the ability, let's say, you know, we have continued issues of someone saying, hey, so-and-so is not doing this, or they're bringing dogs that aren't registered or whatever, that we can, you know, revoke basically their privileges. And then they would turn off, they would deactivate that fob is what they would do. And they would not be able to go into the dog park. Hopefully they're not in the dog park when they deactivate it, because then they won't be able to get out of the dog park. But that's a whole nother thing. So as far as maintenance, that will fall to us. So that's one that I've stressed, and I even talked to Jared a little about it. And I've stressed it to Tammy that whatever money we bring in, that we have a line item for the dog park, so that the funds coming in through the fee for the permitting can then be utilized for greens work or replacement of features or whatever it might need to be. So the dog park should be self-sustaining in that regard, as that if enough permitting fees are coming in. And then it would be so the whole reason behind having a dog tag would be that it would be something that if our maintenance guys are out doing work at Heritage Trail, it'd be easy enough to scan the dogs running around. And if you see a dog that doesn't have that color, then you would check to make sure that dog is actually registered. So that's just an easy way for us. You know, it'll be the same as our skate park, that, you know, we're not going to have an attendant on hand. The hope is that, you know, we start up a volunteering program here and possibly even have volunteers that would be helping kind of keep a watch out of the dog park. Usually, you know, dog park owners are kind of like skateboarders that, you know, once they really like something, they're going to make sure that it's treated correctly, like we've seen with our skate community, and really making sure the skate park is being maintained and taken care of. So I'm hoping the same will happen with our dog park as well. There's always going to be few, but that's the hope.
Okay.
I think that the rules as you laid out here are really comprehensive and really good. The only thing that I I questioned when I read through this was that children under 18 must be accompanied by an adult. I would maybe lower that a little bit. I mean, there are a lot of responsible 14 and 15-year-olds too that I think that 18 is too high is the bottom line. I think we could lower that to 15 or 16 and still be okay. But the rest of this, I think, is really comprehensive and really good. And I really like the price structure that you arrived at. I think that finds a good common ground between, you know, us and our neighbors when it comes to fees.
Does anyone else have any issues as far as I'm fine with dropping that to 15?
Yeah, I would say maybe 15 or 16. On the other end, I was actually wondering if we could possibly raise the 6-year-old to maybe 8. I know my son is going to be 8 in January, and I don't know that I'd turn him loose with 30 dogs running around. I mean, for several reasons. Pretty intimidating with that, and the size of kids varies at that age quite a bit. So from a overly cautious safety aspect, I'd be in favor of increasing that on the low end and dropping the high end a couple of years and increasing the low end a couple of years. The other thing I was going to add is I don't know about everybody else, but maybe Mindy and Jared could kind of look at this, but kind of factor into what it's going to cost to maintain this and service this for the year. I would be in favor of actually increasing the rate to $100. We'd still be lower than our neighbors, our neighboring cities. And with the discounts, we'd be offering additional things. So I'd be in favor of actually increasing from 75 to 100. And then depending on what we think this is going to cost to maintain per year, factor that out by the $100 per dog and kind of cap it at that number initially. But I would be totally okay if we wanted to increase it to see what kind of interest we had at $100. If we need a prime day sale for dog parks, if it doesn't sell at 100, we could always look at that. But I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that. I mean, I agree with what John said. That's looks pretty well in line, and to me, it looks actually much more attractive than the neighbors. So
yeah, I think we live in a community that could support what you're saying, John. So I'm not really hard fast on any of the structure of the pricing, but I think people would pay that.
Especially with the discount for a second and third dog. I mean, I know there are many multiple dog households, and since we do have that, like I said, I think we could support that. If we see that it's not taking a hold, we could always revisit that. And like I said, I'm not firm on that. Just an idea to try to generate some income so it does sustain itself. I do advocate for it paying for itself.
So are you saying?
Would
Go
you
ahead,
then?
Jill.
I was just say, would you increase then the non-Zionsville resident fee from 100? Because it doesn't make sense to have it be the same.
Yeah, we could increase that too. I'm fine with that.
So would you say 100 for the first dog for a Zionsville resident, and would you keep it the 50, or would you want to move that up to 75?
We can keep it 50.
Okay, and then 120 for the non-resident. So again, trying to keep that discount for being a resident of Zionsville. You're paying the taxes for Zionsville.
Yeah.
You paid for this dog park. We're going to give you a little bit of a discount.
Sure. I mean, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but that sounds fine to me.
That sounds good to me too.
Yeah, and I would be in favor of capping it for the first year to see what kind of interest we have at maybe 300, because we're a third of the population of Carmel and they're at 600. So it kind of makes sense to go a little more than a third of them, but maybe not to that 600 level, especially since we only have a relatively small dog park and it's, and only one.
Oh, the other thing too, I was going to say is I know the guest dog option sounds like a really friendly thing to do, but to me, for $5, it sounds like possibly presenting a large headache for our parks department for not much added benefit. So I would be totally okay with getting rid of that.
Something we could consider in the future.
Absolutely.
How things roll off. Okay. So I am happy with making the changes of, we can do the Zionsville resident $100 a year fee for the first dog, 50 for the second and third, 120 for non-resident, no discount. We'll remove the yes dog option for this year, but it's something to think about for future, because I think it is kind of a cool idea for those. And then if no one else has an issue, I'm fine with moving the minimum age for kids in the dog park is 8. And then at 15, they would be allowed to bring their own dog. So using their parents, they have to be 18 to get a fob. So they're using their parents' one. But yeah, if you guys, if that all sounds good, I'm happy with making those changes. And
I have a question.
then, yeah, go ahead, Wayne.
when you talk about having a cap of 300 or 600 or whatever, it's unlikely that 300 people would show up to use the park at one time, but I'm wondering, let's say that 200 show up or 100, what is the number of animals that would be feasible to use the park at one time? Do any of the communities actually have some way of limiting the number of people that can enter the gate in a day's time? Or I'm not sure how that would work, but how many animals can get in there and operate safely?
Right. There's really not, when they talk about the cap, they talk about the number of permits that they issue.
Permits, yeah.
So if we did like a 300 dog cap, that means that, after they hit 300 dogs, that's it. We're not taking any more reservations. We can put you on a wait list. If a spot opens up for whatever reason. As far as, I wrote that into the kind of the rules that the park have, that ability that if we decide, hey, there's too many dogs using the park today, that's as many as we can fit in, we could always look that way. I kind of look at the same as with COVID and our splash pad, that, we set a limit of how many people could be on our splash pad. And did anyone follow our sign? No. Like, I don't know how many times we went to the splash pad and there were more people than what it said on there. Like, hey, if there's this many people, come back later. People still came.
Right.
So we could put anything we want on a rule, but how do you enforce that?
But don't you think that would be, excuse me, Mindy, I'm sorry. Don't we think that would be somewhat self-policing?
Right.
That if you get there and you think there are too many dogs, just go home and you come back later. I mean, it's not like, it's that deep here. I think people would be responsible that way.
Yeah. I think that's the only thing we could rely upon is something that's self-policing.
Yeah.
Self-regulating.
You see the note from Aaron here? Aaron raises a good point here about people who are already locked into memberships in surrounding dog parks.
Yeah, Aaron was asking, how do we incentivize them to pay twice, since this is just new to the community and many people are already members elsewhere? My response to Aaron in that question is, I think the incentive is that it's now here in their own community here in Zionsville. The year's coming to an end. I think a lot of people know this is coming. If Heritage Trail Park is now 5 minutes from their home, I think it is a built-in incentive in my opinion. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I agree. The hope is that, if we have the fee structure in place and we can advertise that one and hopefully start taking in those permits early next year, if someone's getting ready to renew at, say, Carmel, and they go, well, it's $20 cheaper for me to use Zionsville's now and it's closer to home. So that might hopefully be the hope, that we're not looking at this coming in mid-year. We're looking at right at the beginning of 2021. Once we know everything is set through planning, that we could start issuing that and hopefully, I don't know how many people that want to be at Heritage Trail Park in February, but we could always look at, it's going to be cold out there in February. So maybe March or April, we open it up.
Okay, so Mindy's going to make those adjustments and changes. Is there any other discussion or comments that anybody has concerning those changes? Or I agree with John, Mindy. That was a really comprehensive. It was nice to read that because I felt like it was pretty much a completed document when I read it. So thank you.
Well, like I said, if the board likes those, I can make those changes that you recommended. And then if you want to approve that going forward, Jared and myself, and then making sure Roger has no issues as far as the wording for any of the waiver forms, that we can wrap this up and get this off to planning and be one more step ahead for the dog park.
Yeah, it sounds like there's no more discussion. Looks fine to me. I don't know that we need, because this is daily business. Is there motion required to pursue this? I don't think it would be, but.
Yeah, I think you should have a motion to adopt the rules and regulations.
Oh, okay.
And also, didn't Mindy, you say we need to approve the fees because that needs?
Yes, yeah, so that we can put that as far as the ordinance for next year. Yeah.
Okay, so I stand corrected and we will accept a motion to approve the dog park fee structure and rules and regulations for the Heritage Trail Dog Park.
I would make that motion.
Well, I'll go ahead and make that. Wayne beat me. I'll second it then.
Just under the wire, Wayne Bivens with the motion for approval and John Stair with the second. So we'll take a roll call. Member Pack,
Aye.
Member Stair,
Aye.
Member Bivens,
Aye.
Member Salowich,
Aye.
and Member Bidwell.
Aye.
And I also approve. So motion passes unanimously to approve the fee structure and rules and regulations for the Heritage Trail Dog Park. Thank you, Mindy.
All right.
All right, moving on to Mindy, you're up again for the budget update.
Tell me, I'm going out with a bang. Give you guys lots of stuff. All right, so just a quick update on the budget, and Wayne, this will kind of factor in with your questions about the Nature Center.
Mhm.
So as you know, with the budget, we started from scratch, built it back up, played back and forth. We've reached out to you as far as your capital projects and what you considered first priority, second priority. And then our budget went to the mayor's office. And then after the mayor's office, it then is now in town hall or town council. So have not heard anything as far as with town council yet of any of our budget has been changed since the mayor has changed. So I've actually gone in and highlighted in yellow what those changes from the mayor are. So one is that the Director of Rec Services position that you asked to be included in there is still in there. But they funded that position by removing the full-time administrative assistant position. So the position is still there. It is just no longer funded for 2021. That's always something that, you know, the board can go back in and try to ask for reappropriation. I know the wastewater department did that this year, that they had a position that was not funded because they didn't have anyone on staff that could handle that position, and then things changed. They got additional certifications, and they did ask town council to reappropriate those funds for that position. So that's always a possibility, that if you feel that administrative assistant is, you know, full-time is required in the middle of 2021 or at the start, you could ask for them to reappropriate those funds for that position. But that is the way that we were able to keep the Director of Rec Services, by taking the funding from the administrative assistant. So the only change to that means that some of that part-time money that was requested for programming, now one of those positions will stay as the administrative assistant part-time. So that was really the only staff change after the mayor. We did pull out the dog park because it looks like everything we have currently is on order. So hopefully, as long as everyone gets their stuff into us, things are moving pretty slow. We will have everything installed and paid for by the end of 2020 for the dog park. So we did pull that money out for next year. And then the other big changes are really the ones down at the bottom, and they all kind of fall into the Nature Center. So the 500,000 that the board had asked to keep in there for a Nature Center was cut. I'm sure some of you know of the future thoughts from the mayor as far as where the Nature Center may end up. So that was kind of the feel behind that one. The other big one is that the contract services for the Nature Center was also removed. And that was because of the moving of the Nature Center. So that went from a possibility because we had roofing and sewer issues that needed to be examined to now it's a top priority because there is no money in the line item budget for a nature center. Heat, electric, phone, pretty much internet, anything that you would think would run a facility has been taken out of the budget itself. So that kind of puts us where we do have a meeting. Jared, myself, I know John Stair is sitting in for Tim because he cannot attend with the mayor and Julie next Wednesday to discuss where is the nature center actually moving to. I'm sure you've heard town hall. The latest kind of news is possibility within the municipal building itself where the park offices are, and what that timeline looks like for that move. Because while I will say our utilities aren't super big for the nature center, the animals, they do use quite a bit of electric with all those heat lights and pumps going. And so, while we can probably work 2 or 3 months into the overall park budget to cover those utilities, we're going to get a point where we need to make sure we know where we're going because there won't be the money to support the nature center where it currently is. So just kind of want to give you a touch on what changed when it came out of the mayor's office and just answer any questions that you might have. And hopefully next Wednesday, we'll have a little bit more information to provide to everybody. So.
You said she shared an idea of thoughts. Is that to be determined on Wednesday's meeting, or was that shared with you? Is that the only option is town hall?
Currently the options are town hall or the possible, like I said, the possibility of a municipal building since the police department will be moving to town hall. The thought is that the nature center may move into their area of the building, but what that timeline is, we don't know. So that's the biggest one, is trying to figure out the timeline. I know the timeline for the municipal building itself is, the goal is to actually build a new municipal facility for maintenance. And so, how long everyone, the streets and parks are in that building itself is going to be short. But then there's the potential future of the nature center moving into, to new areas. But where that might be, we don't know yet. Everything's still up in the air, which poor nature center has been kind of up in the air the last few years. So
Wow.
We just keep rolling with the punches. We'll land on our feet. We always do. But yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you for the budget update and for the flexibility in that. And I guess we'll look forward to next month, and we'll hopefully have some more information on that. Anything else to share with the budget, Mindy?
No, that's all, unless anyone has any questions. Still currently in your budget, you still have money that has not been pulled for Heritage Trail Park 2, Phase 2, Holiday Nature Park, as well as doing the Turkey Foot Bridge, the Starkey Stairs, and the tennis courts. So that is still all in there as in capital. It has not been touched yet. So, and hopefully it makes it through town council without any changes. So you've still got plenty of projects on your plate for next year, in addition to, Overly Warman and Rail Trail. And yeah, so keeping you guys, you'll be busy next year in 2021.
Good. Any other questions for Mindy? Okay, hearing no questions. Next point of the meeting is the November meeting. Assuming as things stand now, we'll continue with the Zoom meetings. The date for that would be November 11th.
And so November 11th is a holiday, which.
Oh, it's Veterans Day.
It's Veterans Day. So Jared should be off, whether he wants to be or not. And so the thought would be, if the board wants to move, I know we've done it in the past where you fall on a holiday. If you wanted to look at moving it to that Thursday or to another I don't recommend moving it to the next week just because then you're dealing with claims issues. But so if you wanted to move it to the 12th, there's that chance. And then also town council has started hybrid meetings where they are doing in person and Zoom. And so there's always that thought if you as a park board would want to try to do a hybrid meeting, start to meet in person again, or you can, of course, no one's forcing anyone, you can stay virtual via Zoom only. I think that's kind of a given for the rest of the year. It's really what you feel comfortable in. So that's kind of the last thing that I had on is what date do you want for your November board meeting and how do you want to hold it?
So if anybody does anybody have any issues with the Thursday, the 12th of November? Assuming no issues there, as long as we give public notice, I think we're fine to move it to that Thursday. So hearing no
You know what? I actually have it on my calendar for the 12th. I think that we talked about this in the January or March meeting.
Okay.
And we talked about already moving it to the 12th.
Right. I'll double check, but we'll make sure if not that it is.
Okay, sounds good. So we're settled for next meeting November 12th. And we'll plan on the virtual agenda unless we hear otherwise from the mayor. Moving on to claims, everybody had a chance to review the claims. We'll take any questions or discussion now. And hearing no questions, I will accept a motion to approve the claims as submitted.
I move to accept the claims as submitted.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Wayne. Motion made by member Pack, seconded by member Bivens. We'll take roll. For approving claims, member Pack.
Aye.
Member Stair.
Aye.
Member Bivens.
Aye.
Member Salowich.
Aye.
And member Bidwell.
Aye.
And I also say aye, so we will consider claims approved. At this point, I will thank Jared again for participating in his first full meeting as acting superintendent. Welcome again, Jared. Thanks everybody. Wish Tim a speedy recovery, and we'll look for him on the next meeting. But other than that, we will consider ourselves adjourned till our November 12th meeting.
Do you need a motion to adjourn, John?
Thanks, John.
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
I appreciate that. All right.
Second.
Seconded by member Pack. Motion to adjourn. We'll take a roll call. Aye. Everybody say aye.
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 The second was actually by Aaron, not me.
Oh, did Aaron get in there? Okay. Thanks, Aaron. All right. We'll consider ourselves adjourned to the unanimous aye. So everybody have a good evening and thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
all. Thank you, John.
Bye.
Good night.